My name is Eliza Finch, and for most of my 32 years, I've been the quiet anomaly in a family obsessed with legacy, status, and appearances. We are the Finches of Blackwood Manor, a name synonymous with old money, prestigious landholdings, and a carefully curated 300-year history rooted in exploration and industry. My older brother Thomas, 35, was the golden heir. Charismatic, impeccably dressed, and effortlessly charming, he embodied everything my parents, Richard and Eleanor Finch, admired. He was destined to inherit the family's vast real estate and investment empire, along with its carefully polished narrative. I, on the other hand, was the family's resident historian, not by choice initially, but by quiet obsession. While Thomas played polo and courted wealthy investors, I spent my childhood in Blackwood's sprawling, dusty private library, poring over brittle ledgers, faded photographs, and the sprawling collection of ancient maps that detailed the Finch family's foundational land acquisitions. My parents tolerated my quaint pursuits. "Eliza has such a vivid imagination," my mother would often say to guests, a polite smile masking a hint of bewilderment, always lost in the past. The crown jewel of our family collection was the Finch Family Atlas, a celebrated tome of historical maps, most notably a rare 17th century map supposedly drawn by our pioneering patriarch, Elias Finch, charting his original land claims. It hung, framed in ornate gold, in the main drawing room, the symbolic bedrock of our family's impeccable lineage. This particular map was my obsession. I'd spent countless hours studying its delicate parchment, its elegant script, the way its borders mirrored the very land our estate stood upon. My grandmother, bless her wise, knowing heart, had recognized this quiet devotion. "This map," she'd told me years ago, her voice a conspiratorial whisper, "it holds the true story. One day it will be yours, Eliza. You are the one who understands." Her words were a promise, a quiet anchor in a family that often felt like shifting sands. When grandmother passed away last year, the family gathered at Blackwood for the reading of the will. The atmosphere was thick with polite grief and thinly veiled anticipation. My parents, rigid with decorum, presided over the proceedings. Thomas, ever the dutiful son, sat beside his wife Serena, a woman of sharp angles and even sharper ambitions, whose gaze lingered on grandmother's antique jewelry. The bulk of the estate, as expected, went to Thomas. The ancestral businesses, the majority of the land, the investment portfolios, all his. And then the solicitor cleared his throat. "And to Thomas." My breath hitched. I looked at my parents, their faces impassive. I looked at Thomas, whose eyes gleamed with a triumphant, possessive glint. Serena squeezed his arm, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. They hadn't even given it a second thought. My grandmother's promise, the quiet understanding we shared, was summarily dismissed, replaced by a token of status for the heir. Later that evening, after the last mourners had departed, I approached Thomas. "Thomas," I began, my voice trembling slightly despite my best efforts. "About the atlas. Grandmother promised it to me. I've spent years studying it. It holds such historical significance." Thomas laughed, a dismissive, airy sound. "Oh, Eliza, don't be so sentimental. It's just an old map. Looks good in my new study, though. Serena thinks it'll really tie the room together." Serena, always quick to reinforce his disdain, chimed in. "Precisely. It's a statement piece, a symbol of the Finch legacy, not some dusty museum relic for your research. She emphasized research with a sneer. My parents, standing nearby, offered weak, placating smiles. Darling, my mother said, stepping forward. Thomas needs it for the house. It's tradition. You have your archives. You understand. It's just a map, Eliza, my father added, his voice tinged with impatience. Move on. Focus on something practical. Something cold and precise settled in my chest. They saw my passion as a flaw, my quiet dedication as a childish obsession. They had just stolen my grandmother's final promise, and by extension, a piece of my own identity, for the sake of a decorator's whim. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. My retaliation didn't begin with a grand scheme that night. It began years ago, in the quiet solitude of Blackwood Manor's library, driven by a deep-seated curiosity about the real story behind the polished Finch legacy. While my family cultivated their image, I was unearthing secrets. I had cataloged every single document, every cryptic notation, every forgotten journal hidden within the library's darkest corners. My vault, as I called my encrypted digital archives, held meticulous records. Correspondence, obscure deeds, even personal diaries of long-dead Finches, all dismissed by my family as old junk or too dull for display. The Finch Family Atlas was indeed a masterpiece of cartography. The lines were crisp, the colors vibrant, the detail astonishing for its age. I traveled to historical archives in London, Lisbon, and even a small forgotten parish in rural Ireland, tracing Elias Finch's true origins. I cross-referenced obscure shipping manifests, deciphered coded letters, and meticulously pieced together fragmented land records. My parents and Thomas barely noticed my academic trips, seeing them as further proof of my impracticality. My breakthrough came 6 months ago, hidden in plain sight. Deep within a forgotten, water-damaged family journal, a seemingly worthless daily log of crops and weather, I found it. A hidden compartment, cleverly disguised, containing a single, faded, unremarkable piece of parchment. It was a crude, hastily drawn map, folded and refolded countless times. Its lines were shaky, its colors muted. It looked nothing like the Finch Family Atlas, but this was the real thing. This authentic map, a rough sketch attributed to Elias Finch's own hand, clearly showed the ancestral lands extending far beyond what was legally acquired. It showed a river bend where an indigenous settlement once stood, now marked as Finch property. It showed forests labeled as cleared that were clearly still vital ecosystems belonging to local communities. And tucked within its folds was a single cryptic note, in Elias's true handwriting, referencing a grand design and a new history. The celebrated Finch Family Atlas, the symbol of our lineage, was a brilliant forgery, commissioned by Elias Finch to legitimize stolen land. The grand design wasn't about exploration, it was about deception. And this small, unassuming, authentic map, hidden within a discarded journal, was the key to unlocking the true, dark origins of the Finch legacy. A legacy built not on pioneering spirit, but on sophisticated fraud and theft. It also hinted at a hidden cache of documents detailing other systematic deceptions by early Finches, designed to secure their wealth and status. The Finch name, the land, the prestige, it was all founded on the lie, and I, the quiet, sentimental historian, held the irrefutable evidence. My revenge wouldn't be loud, it would be a quiet, meticulous, and devastating historical correction. The night of the Finch family legacy unveiling arrived. Thomas and Serena had just completed their lavish new mansion, a sprawling modern edifice of glass and steel that screamed new money, despite their desperate attempts to ape old-world grandeur. The party was a spectacular affair, a who's who of London society, business magnates, and, crucially, a few prominent cultural figures. The guest of honor for the evening was Dr. Julian Thorne, a world-renowned historical cartographer and former mentor of mine from my university days. He had always admired the Finch collection, genuinely believing in its historical significance. His presence lent an air of academic legitimacy to what was, for Thomas and Serena, largely a social climbing exercise. The centerpiece of their grand new study, beneath dazzling spotlights, was the Finch Family Atlas. Thomas had even commissioned a special, velvet-lined display case for it. I moved through the crowd, a phantom in my custom-designed gown. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, hovered nearby, beaming with pride as they introduced Thomas and Serena to various dignitaries. Clara, radiant in a designer gown, held court with a group of lawyers and financiers, occasionally casting a dismissive glance my way. Amelia, Clara's voice, laced with its usual honeyed condescension, cut through the din. James was just telling everyone about the atlas. It looks simply stunning in his study. So much better than gathering dust in the old manor, wouldn't you agree? Oh, I agree completely, I replied, my voice calm, utterly composed. It certainly brings a certain clarity to the room. At precisely 9 p.m., Thomas took the stage, champagne flute in hand. He spoke eloquently of ancestral vision, unwavering dedication, and the Finch family's enduring contribution to the nation's prosperity. He lauded his pioneering ancestor Elias, and then gestured grandly to the atlas. And here, ladies and gentlemen, he boomed, is the very blueprint of our legacy, charting the lands our family cultivated for centuries, a testament to Elias Finch's brave explorations. The crowd applauded politely. Dr. Thorne, my former mentor, stood in the front, his gaze fixed on the map, a quiet admiration on his face. As the applause subsided, Thomas moved into a more detailed explanation of the map's features, pointing out certain landmarks with practiced ease. His explanations were fluent, but superficial. He spoke of historical authenticity and irrefutable proof of lineage, using buzzwords with practiced ease. But his voice lacked the true understanding, the intimate, scholarly knowledge of its true nature. Then, the moment I had meticulously planned arrived. Dr. Thorne, known for his incisive questions, raised a hand. Mr. Finch, Professor Thorne's voice boomed, clear and resonant. The cartographic detail of this Elias Finch map is truly extraordinary for the 17th century. However, my specific research into regional land grants from that period reveals certain discrepancies regarding the original boundary markers, particularly along the Westbourne River. Could you elaborate on how your ancestor managed to secure such uniquely accurate surveys, given the then prevailing limitations of surveying technology? He gestured vaguely at the map, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Serena, sensing the shift, stepped forward, her smile rigid. Professor Thorne, perhaps we can provide a detailed historical provenance brief at your convenience? Our family historians have compiled extensive documentation. No, Mrs. Finch, Dr. Thorne interrupted, his gaze fixed on Thomas. I'm interested in the core historical veracity. Mr. Finch, how does your family reconcile the perfect, almost anachronistic precision of this map with the known surveying capabilities of the era? And specifically, why does it omit the significant Aboriginal settlements documented in contemporaneous, albeit less circulated, regional surveys from the same period? Thomas's face went utterly pale. He had no idea what aboriginal settlements or contemporaneous regional surveys even meant in this context. He looked at Serena, then desperately scanned the room for a lifeline. His eyes, frantic now, landed on me, standing quietly near an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus exhibit. This was it. My heart pounded, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. This was the precise trap I had laid. Thomas, in his arrogance, had connected the atlas's display lighting to the main network, simply because it was the fastest way to showcase it. He thought he was illuminating his legacy. He was, but he was also illuminating his family's deep-seated deception. I took a deep breath. I had one shot. Without moving from my spot, I subtly retrieved my phone. It was connected to a discrete augmented reality app I had developed, linked to a hidden RFID tag I had meticulously affixed to the genuine, crude map I carried in my bag. With a few swift, silent taps on my screen, I activated a projected overlay within the main display. On the massive central projection of the Finch family atlas, which had been static, suddenly shifted. A faint, almost imperceptible red glow began to pulse over the elegantly drawn land boundaries. Below it, a new line of text, written in a subtle, almost academic font, appeared overlaid onto the official presentation. Warning: cartographic discrepancy. Analysis reveals significant deviations from verifiable 17th century land surveys. Omission of indigenous land claims confirmed. Elias Finch's True Survey from Private Collection provides accurate historical record. The change was barely perceptible to the general audience, just a momentary ripple in the background visuals, but to Dr. Thorne it was a thunderclap. His eyes widened. He looked from the screen to Thomas's panicked face, and then his gaze swept the room, searching. Thomas, completely oblivious to the text, continued to bluster. As you can see, Dr. Thorne, the atlas is an indisputable record of our origins.
Indisputable, yes,
Dr. Thorne said, his voice now dangerously calm. He pointed to the screen. Mr. Finch, can you explain the cartographic discrepancy that just appeared? And what exactly is the Elias Finch's True Survey that provides an accurate historical record, which seems to directly contradict this magnificent piece? Thomas's jaw dropped. He actually looked behind him at the screen, as if seeing the words for the first time. He sputtered. I'm not familiar with that specific notation. It's a system glitch, perhaps? My digital team handles the display layers. He glanced at Serena, who looked equally bewildered, her face turning crimson as she saw the damning words. Dr. Thorne slowly turned his head, his eyes sweeping the room. Is there anyone here from the Finch family who can explain this discrepancy? The brilliance of uncovering genuine historical truth, even if inconvenient, is truly a game changer for academic integrity. I would very much like to speak to the person who integrated this into your presentation. Silence. Everyone looked at Thomas and Serena. They looked at each other, trapped. Thomas started to say something, but Dr. Thorne cut him off with a raised hand. His gaze, piercing, landed on me, standing quietly at the back. I met his eyes. He saw the faint red glow on the screen, then looked back at my calm, still face. A slow, knowing smile spread across his lips. Ah, he said, his voice resonating through the hushed hall. There you are. He walked past Thomas and Serena, who stood frozen in place, and approached the back of the room. Dr. Davies, he said, a deliberate emphasis on my last name. I believe the credit for this profound historical correction belongs to you. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, who had been beaming with pride just moments ago, looked like they'd been slapped. The fallout was swift and devastating. Dr. Thorne, completely ignoring Thomas and Serena, engaged me in a direct, highly technical conversation right there in front of the entire audience. I explained the methodology behind my discovery, the provenance of the true map, and the ethical implications of perpetuating a historical falsehood. I spoke with a clarity, precision, and ethical conviction that Thomas could never have feigned. I didn't gloat. I didn't accuse. I simply presented irrefutable facts, backed by documented research from my vault. And the facts spoke volumes. Thomas was publicly humiliated. He tried to interrupt, to claim it was a misunderstanding or an academic dispute. But Dr. Thorne's gaze was like a laser, cutting him off cold. Serena, realizing the scale of the disaster and the impending social and reputational nightmare, looked utterly defeated, her face ashen beneath her perfect. Within minutes, Dr. Thorne had a private, intense conversation with the museum board chairman who had rushed to the gala, alerted by the unusual silence, followed by the sudden panicked murmur. I later heard that Dr. Thorne had laid out everything: my discovery of the genuine map, Elias Finch's deliberate forgery, and the fact that a truly revolutionary historical correction, my Veritas work, had been discovered and presented by me, in secret because my own family had dismissed my hobby and ignored my expertise. He also confirmed that my vault of documentation made the Finch family's historical deception undeniable. Thomas Davies was stripped of his public role in the Digital Legacy Project within 24 hours. The official reason cited was failure to uphold academic and historical integrity. His new mansion, built on the illusion of impeccable lineage, now stood as a symbol of fraud. Serena's social climbing was effectively over. No one wanted to be associated with a family whose legacy was revealed to be a carefully constructed lie. Richard and Eleanor Davies weren't publicly reprimanded, but their social standing plummeted. Their once dominant presence in charitable and cultural circles evaporated. The Finch name, once whispered with reverence, was now spoken with a knowing smirk. As for me, the museum board chairman, advised by Dr. Thorne, offered me a newly created, permanent role: Chief Historical Preservation Officer for the entire museum system, with an unprecedented budget, complete academic autonomy, and a direct line to the board. It was a position that would allow me to shape the future of historical research and preservation in ways I'd only dreamed of. But I declined. The morning after the gala, my phone rang. It was Dr. Julian Thorne. He offered me the position as Director of Global Historical Authenticity for his private foundation, with unlimited resources, complete academic freedom, and the mandate to seek out and fund groundbreaking historical discoveries and correct pervasive historical inaccuracies worldwide. He had seen my true worth, unburdened by family expectations or superficial social currency. I took the job. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. It was about proving, not to them, but to myself, that my quiet competence, my overlooked passion, and my unwavering commitment to truth were more powerful than any carefully polished facade or inherited pretense. I didn't want to operate in a system that valued optics and outdated traditions over genuine scholarship and contribution. I wanted to build something real, something enduring, with people who truly understood and appreciated the depth of work required to uncover true history and preserve true legacy. It's been 3 years since that extraordinary night. I'm thriving as the Director of Global Historical Authenticity for Dr. Thorne's Foundation. My team has grown from a handful of dedicated scholars to a network of renowned historians, archivists, and digital preservationists across the globe. My research, once dismissed as dusty, is now celebrated openly. My name appears in major academic journals, historical documentaries, and, yes, even mainstream headlines, always associated with integrity and groundbreaking discovery. Thomas Davies? Last I heard, he's attempting to rebrand Davies and Sons as a boutique architectural consultancy for smaller, less prestigious projects, reportedly struggling to find clients. His reputation for vision has been replaced by a lingering whisper of historical fraud. Serena's social ambitions have been curtailed. Her new mansion, once her proudest symbol, is now a silent monument to a lie. And the Digital Legacy project at the museum? It still stands, a testament to James's technical skills, but a hollow shell without the historical accuracy my work would have provided. They tried to find another archivist to maintain and update the complex systems, but without the original scholar, they've struggled. The installation, while still visually impressive, lacks the intellectual depth and ethical foundation it once had. It's a static display, a beautiful but fundamentally flawed piece, slowly decaying into mere pixels, just like the legacy they tried to build on borrowed truth. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that dinner, about James's bluster and my parents' dismissiveness. I think about the years I spent feeling unseen, undervalued, my passion dismissed as a hobby. But then I remember the quiet satisfaction of discovering the true map, line by line, detail by detail, knowing its true, history-altering power. I remember the look on Dr. Thorne's face when he saw that red glow, the dawning realization of centuries of deception exposed. It wasn't a shouted confrontation, it wasn't a public meltdown. It was quiet, meticulous work. It was believing in my own abilities when no one else would. It was letting my scholarship speak for itself. And that, Reddit, was the most satisfying revenge of all. So, if you're out there, the quiet one, the one always doing the real work while someone else takes the credit, keep building. Keep documenting. Keep perfecting your craft in silence, because when the moment comes, your true brilliance will be undeniable, and they will learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most devastating power, not just to bring down falsehoods, but to reveal and preserve the most profound truths. Thanks for listening.